Hey, buddy. Welcome to what might be the first official, maybe unofficial is a better word here, first unofficial Between the Pipes podcast. We are trying something new on the eve or, a couple weeks before the launch of NHL 25 and have a few great topics to talk through for those of us within the Between the Pipes community. My name is Willemander, but more importantly, I am joined by two fantastic members of the community, professional high-level goalies that I cannot wait to have a great conversation about what we've seen, what we've learned so far, and what is coming up next. So without further ado, let me pass it over to one of these members here on the podcast with me. Revv, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
What's going on, guys? It's Revv, my little Revvy. You guys know I've been kind of new to the BTP, like helping John with making videos and content, stuff like that. But aside from that, I've been esports goalie for, gosh, how long? It feels like forever, but yeah, I mean, I'm just really excited to get talking about 25. I feel like it's been a while since we've had the buzz, the hype around. So I think this is always a fun time of year because it kind of correlates with the start of the NHL season. So there's all this excitement. So I'm really looking forward to talk to what I'm personally looking forward to in this game, and the other guys are hoping to see too.
Fantastic. And our other co-host, I guess what we'll call ourselves, McSavid. How's it going? Why don't you introduce yourself to the folks listening or watching?
Yeah. Hi everybody, it's McSavid here, and I'm looking forward to this time. As Revv said, we've been working with Between the Pipes now for almost a year, and we are looking forward to giving you guys some tips and insights from our minds. So let's go, boys.
Let's go, boys. What McSavid didn't say is his resume as a goalie. Do you want to give the quick little run through? Because it's pretty impressive, and if I try to say it, I might mess it up, and then we'll jump right in.
I don't keep that good of a track on my record, to be honest. I know I won one championship or something. That's pretty much it.
Always a humble guy. Very, very cool. Well, if I didn't mention, my name is Willemander. I am not a professional or esports goaltender. I'm just a goaltender that loves talking about goalie stuff, and I'm very happy to be doing so here with the Between the Pipes team. So to sort of set us up and for us to start just getting right into it, I think there's two topics that we're going to go through today. The first one is EA, back in early September, launched a gameplay deep dive blog. They launched it at the same time as their gameplay video trailer, and I think we're going to cover that in a different video. But in the deep dive blog, they had a section about some changes that they're planning to make specifically about goaltenders. So the first thing that we're going to do today is talk through that, give our opinions on what we think is going to be good, what we think is going to be bad, what doesn't make any sense, or what we're really excited about that EA has given us so far. And then the second part of this, perhaps it might be a second video that follows right after, but the other part of this conversation is going to be just from our perspectives. A bit of a wish list, if you will. What do we as individual goalies, what do we as members of this goalie community hope EA does for our position, for our experience in the game, in this upcoming version of EA NHL? So what I'm hoping, if you're watching this on YouTube or similar, I hope you guys are now getting a view of the list. I'll try to put a link down in whatever sort of bio we have. Pardon our dust, we're a little new here, but I'm going to bring up the list, and Revv, McSavid, I think the way I'll do this is I'll just start going down bullet by bullet and toss it to you guys. Get your sort of perspectives and thoughts on what you think is going on here, and we will move straight through. I think it's about 10 different bullet points.
Yeah, and I just want to add that if anyone's watching that can't see your list, it's probably because they haven't subscribed or something.
You're right. I think we are going to hide this behind the subscribe wall. Listen, if you guys are here and you care about goaltending, which I assume you do if you somehow found this video or podcast, give us a follow, give us a like, give us whatever social media platform you're on, press those buttons as quickly as you can, and we will do our best in return to give you great tips, great insight, and great content this upcoming year.
Sure.
Well, hey, let's dive in. This list is a bunch of bullet points, and what EA says is here are some things that we are trying to improve and change for goaltenders, and the very first one is a general one. It even says it itself. The first bullet point says general improvements with preemptive save decisions and animations. I think the key word here is this concept of preemptive save decisions. Revv, I'm going to start with you. When you think about the word preemptive and the way that it interacts with you playing goaltender, do you like the fact that they're focusing more on this? What do you think about this like first top bullet point that EA has given us?
So yeah, I feel like, of course, like being the first bullet point, I feel like it kind of is gonna like set the scene for everything else they're gonna elaborate on. Both as an e-goalie and as a real life goalie, I feel like when I hear the preemptive save decision, it makes me think of the idea of kind of getting us in a better position to make the save. It almost like my initial thought is how we saw in the trailer, how they kind of revamped player skating and being able to constantly face the net. I thought that's what kind of makes me think of being like in a better position once these animations do kick in and having, I guess, more appropriate animations for and save selections for whatever situation comes up.
Yeah, I think I have been hoping that what this preemptive save decision and even the word save decision, that's sort of a new one. There's this funny thing that I think all of us have gotten used to with EA and goalies is we sort of have to learn their language, and there's going to be other terminology that we go through down this list, but save decisions I hope is a net positive. My only concern, and I think you touched on it a little bit, is this idea of if something's preemptive, that sounds like it might be sort of taken out of our control at times. McSavid, let me toss it over to you. Does this feel like a net positive, a net negative, or something that is maybe too broad for us to understand? What do you think overall about this improvement that they've talked about?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it's my English that's messing me up here, but it's preemptive is for me is that he already decides to make a save before the shot comes. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it would be something like sort of anticipating situation and preempting what he wants to do or what our goalie wants to do in reaction. I think you're right.
Yeah, at least if it's so, I hope he doesn't do the animation until the shot happens, because otherwise it could get abused from the manual shooters if they know that the goalie is gonna do an animation, even if they don't shoot and just deke around it. So I'm a bit worried about that one, but hopefully I'm wrong.
Yeah, that was my general take as well. And I know, Revv, you said, hey, this is the first bullet point that they put is this sort of setting the direction. I find this one to be probably one of the more difficult to understand what they mean. It's a little bit more high level than some of these others. So of course it's going to be something that we have to figure out as we go. I hope it gives us more tools and not less. And that's a theme that I'm going to think about through a lot of this list.
I was honestly going to think too, when I hear the preemptive save decision, I'm thinking about it again. It makes me think about the whole instinct system that they try to incorporate in 24. And I wonder if that is meaning that maybe they're kind of going back to maybe because it seems like, preemptive save decisions, if that's going to maybe improve that instinct system and make it more accessible for people. Because I think especially at the esports level, I feel like most guys tended to play the game like in previous years, so they took out the tether. They didn't really mess with the instinct as much, so maybe they're going to try to make that something that's more rewarding, more accessible, so that more people would want to try that new feature possible. Maybe I didn't think of that, though. If we take preemptive, instead of it being our sort of auto goalie doing auto preemptive stuff, if we say, well, what could EA give us that allows us to be preemptive with our save decisions? I think you're spot on. The instinct is almost exactly that. And I think you're right. One thing that we've seen in the Between the Pipes Discord, which, by the way, if you guys are listening and not a member, there'll be a link to join. You should definitely come hang out with all of us and talk goalie all the time. But no, it's a trend that we definitely saw is instinct was not very well picked up. Not that I think people had much bad to say about it. It just didn't feel like the value was worth the learning curve, and it just didn't
it didn't seem to convince, especially as you mentioned, esports, pro level, NHL level goalies. EA did not do a good enough job convincing folks to give it a try. I tried my best because I did find Instinct to, at the very least, be interesting and fun. And I like that we had just another tool in our tool belt that EA gave us, since we sort of lack having a bunch of tools, in my opinion. But as the season went on, admittedly, as strongly as I felt and as much as I recommended people give it a try, I found myself using it less and less because I found the output of it to be less and less helpful. So I think you're spot on. To close up here, I would love if they continue to improve and make that part of our game, that instinct feature, worthwhile, because then we're giving goalies something they manually can control, in my opinion, that can create a difference between a great goalie and a good goalie. Someone that's better at instinct, something that can show more skill expression, maybe then just gives us more ways to show that we're great. Our second bullet point here says improved poke check and puck cover responsiveness and situation solving. Situation solving is what stood out to me the most here, but McSavid, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually wrote this as a plus because I've been for a couple of years now really, what's the word? Bad about the bad poke check from us goalies. It's been bad aim and bad range. So I'm glad to see that they put down an effort to make improved poke checks, because I've been trying it, not for in esports, but on regular nights, and I'm not a fan, but it could help us a lot if we could improve our poke checks. Not so that it'll be overpowered, but at least give us a bit better poke checks. So I'm excited about that one.
And when you talk about you've been trying poke checks, do you mean the sort of standard, like forward on your right stick, and that's the poke check that you've been trying, or are you talking about the diving poke check?
No, I'm talking about when I'm down in butterfly and the puck is like a meter or yard in front of me. I just want to get it out of there, and it's just sitting there waiting for a forward to come pick it up, when I in fact could just poke check it instead. So that's what I'm not the flying poke check.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's a tool that I personally never, I don't know that I've used it a single time in the last 3 years. I'm actually curious, just from a gameplay point of view, right now, what is your experience since you have been trying it? I would love to understand, like, what has your experience been like trying it? Has it worked? Has it gone wrong? And if it were to improve in a way that would get the McSavid stamp of approval, what do you think EA could do to improve it?
Well, I don't want them to improve it so it'll be overpowered or abused or something, but I would like to see a bit better aim on the poke check. Maybe not the range, it doesn't have to be too far, but the aim at least. So you could, because if the puck is just sitting there, and we as goalies should be down in our butterfly, we are sitting ducks if it's a forward coming in with the speed. And the best way to solve that situation is to poke check it away, in my opinion. So I would like to see some better aim on the poke check. It doesn't have to be better range. Of course, that would be nice, but that would be abused, I guess.
So I actually completely agree with what McSavid said. I think huge reason why the standard poke check is so underutilized is just because of that lack of aim that you have with it. Because I think if you just go just a smidge to the left or to the right too far on the right stick, then you get yourself into that, like the power slide, butterfly slide across. And I think it would be great in order to kind of separate those two, if either I think it would probably make more sense for the like push across, if you maybe have to hold down the butterfly in order to then kind of activate that, like to, I guess, toggle it and then use the right stick. So then that way you have that full, I guess, essentially 180-degree range of being able to poke with the right stick and not have to worry about sliding yourself out of position when you have that situation, like McSavid said, where the puck's just sitting right in front of you and you want to be able to just kind of knock it away.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's that one gold trait, all or nothing, I think, where when you do a diving poke check and you have that as your gold, you get a better animation with the dive. I think your goalie sort of positions himself, herself in a little bit more advantageous for any second chance opportunities with like almost sort of like a quasi stacking the pad. But my favorite part of that trait, the stick itself sort of becomes almost like a homing missile, or at the very least, it has a brain behind it. The goalie is actually aiming the poke check at where the puck is in that moment. Whereas if you do a standard diving poke check, it's always a straightforward every single time. So I would love, even if it's as simple as your poke checks, do a little bit of aim themselves, or just like you mentioned, maybe we can control that aim, and that sounds really interesting. But I love what you guys said. I couldn't agree more. The last part of this would be just additional puck cover responsiveness and situation solving. This one seems like if they get it right, maybe a little bit simpler. In my mind, the big thing that we experience as goalies is a puck, hits our chest, hits a block or whatever, and drops into our feet. And our goalie doesn't do the logical thing, which is not only drop, sometimes he'll drop, but he won't cover it. And then it's just sitting there and we don't understand why.
Yeah.
And then it gets poked in. So my guess is that they're trying to solve that. But did you guys read anything else out of this section of the bullet point?
It's the improved poke check and the puck covering responsiveness. Maybe it's pretty much the same, different side of the same coin, I guess.
Yep.
Because either you want to poke check it away, or you want to cover it as fast as possible.
My thought, because I think I saw this mentioned somewhere too, the idea that now you'll be able to have kind of a better ability to cover the puck, where he was saying, oh, even if the puck is like tied up in like your player's skates, like your defenseman's skates, or it's on their stick, that you may still have the potential to cover it. Because I know there have been a few times where I've definitely gotten scored on by my teammate picking up the puck, and just because it was on his stick and he turned a certain way, that it went into the net and my goalie kind of just stood there. Or you kind of get caught in that like hungry hippo kind of animation when you're trying to find the puck, and that can either get you out of position or in some cases even knock the puck in yourself. So I think having a little bit better responsiveness and hopefully a bit better ability to cover the puck regardless of if there's nobody around or if it's kind of in the mess of bodies, I think that's definitely.
Yeah. Well, I find this next one really interesting. Improvements to save motion coming onto the goalposts. Goalposts, things like hugging the post, things like not getting sniped on the post or handling wraparounds. I know that it's a contentious part of sort of the goaltending approach. And to sort of set the stage here, and let me know if either of you disagree, I think the general consensus right now is most goalies do not utilize the hug the post button or the actual function that EA gave us. And I think the reason why is because if you use that bumper that attaches you to the post, even though that might be a good position to make the save if they do actually try to score up against your post, if they don't take that shot and instead maybe they continue skating to the center of your crease during a wraparound, or they pass it to the slot, the animation and the speed, or I guess lack thereof, that it takes to get off of the post, if you've used that bumper function, is really slow, really hard to control. And so my understanding, at least what I do, is I basically manually hug the post myself by just getting my goalie overlapping it. And so guys, I think the question here is, when they talk about improvements to save motion as you go into the goal posts, they tried something this in EA 24, where they tried an auto post hug that I think most people turned off for the same reason that I just described. Is there something else that you think this might be trying to solve for? How do you sort of translate this one?
Yeah, so I've definitely have actually been one of the few people I think still nowadays that kind of utilize it. Granted, I definitely utilize it more as a means to like reposition myself, because I noticed, especially in 24, that if you have a wider stance too, a lot of times, sometimes your leg closest to the post might get stuck inside the net. So I'll kind of use the hug post more as a repositioning kind of tool as opposed to a kind of save selection. But I know a few years ago, I definitely used it more as a like going into the VH like not even the RVH, but the VH. And then if they were to cut across to the middle of the crease, then I would essentially like bump off the post that way, like into a butterfly. But yeah, I think some issues I've definitely seen with it is like trying to slide into the post. If you're standing up, sometimes I've seen your goalie almost kind of go into like an old school, like stand-up goalie, like putting the legs together and trying to stop the puck that way, which I think opens up that short side still. And I've even seen sometimes trying to like hold the hug post button as you butterfly slide into it, and your goalie kind of may like kind of lean like their shoulder into it, but it still seems to kind of create a gap there. So I think being able to utilize post play, because I know that's a huge thing that's very clunky right now. So I think being able to make it more fluid and make it more realistic to goalies who do a lot of plays off the post in real life, I think that is good that this is something they're giving attention to, as opposed to just relying on overlapping and hoping that the hitbox of your skate is covering the post enough on like a wraparound play so that they don't sneak through.
Yeah, McSavid, curious, probably two questions here. I mean, obviously one, I agree with what Revv said about when I do use the function of hug to post, it's to reposition, which I'm sure is not the intention of EA.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you find yourself using it for that reason or any others? And then what would if this bullet point turned into what you would want post play to look like, what would that be?
That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about that. I as you guys, I pretty much use the hug post just to reset myself when I'm out of position. So I haven't read too much into that bullet point. So I'm curious to see. I'm gonna try it, of course, as should everyone that's listening to this video. We should try out everything. But yeah, no, I haven't read too much into that point. Just I have some time to see how they could improve the post play, the goal post play too much. But
yeah, Revv said it well. It is one of the clunkier parts, and so I'm glad they're thinking about it. Well, moving on down the line here, the next bullet point says increase save range, including better solving for lacrosse goals. This one might be a quick one because increased save range should almost always just be like a net positive. Save range, as described by EA in some of their forum posts, really speaks to the idea of if your goalie is in a single position, how far away can the shot be from you for your goalie to still reach it? And so if they're increasing the save range, in my mind, that just means if you need to cross the crease and get from one post to the other to make the save, increased save range would just mean you don't have to get quite as far over. So that should be net positive. And then if they call out this idea of better solving for lacrosse goals. I don't know about you all. I don't tend to find lacrosse goals to be something I need to solve for much. And so my read might be that, well, are they planning to buff lacrosse goals? Are they planning to try to make it something people do more of? And so if that's the case, sure, I want them to give us tools. But McSavid, any thoughts on the save range improvement or the lacrosse goal solving that they're trying to improve here for goalies?
No, I think you're spot on there. Willemander, increased save range is I hope it's as simple as it sounds, but probably not. Maybe it's only for the shorter goalies again, as they tried in the second half of last year. But no, I have nothing to add.
Revv, any thoughts about either of those as well?
So I think as far as the increased save range, I'm going to be a little devil's advocate here that I know in 24 that both for players and goalies alike, I feel like people have been a little bit critical of the save range of goalies, thinking that it's been kind of inconsistent, the whole going back to the like puck covering up situation, that there are some plays where it seems like there's a goal that we should have easily saved versus you have these shots, say like a cross crease like you're talking about, or like a one-timer play where the goalie's completely like dead to rights out of position, but somehow has like a go-go gadget glove hand and manages to make that glove save. So I think if some people see an increased save range and think of maybe some of the saves that they saw in 24, they may think that, oh, is this going to make goalies even more overpowered now? Are they going to have further range to make saves that they shouldn't? Or does it mean in this case... of the lacrosse goal of just being like, give you, like you said, more tools, where right now I think the best way to mitigate it is either fully kind of wrapping yourself around the post, or sometimes for me, my honestly best deterrent for lacrosse goals is doing just the stand-up post hug, just because it really covers that top corner. But I'm curious to see. I hope it doesn't mean that it's going to make the save range even further expanded for the saves that we shouldn't be making, as much as, of course, we all love to saves. But hopefully it's just more so focusing on the idea of lacrosse goals and how we can have save that if it becomes prevalent.
Couldn't agree more on everything you said. We don't want it to be something that feels oppressive and unfair. We want to feel like we are the reasons that we're making saves, so I hope they find a smart way through it. Let's drive on through then to the next one. An interesting one, I find, because this really speaks to different approaches to goaltending that a lot of us have, and this is what makes a lot of us unique, is how we handle this next bullet point, which is goalies stay on their feet longer and won't drop to or won't stay in butterfly if they have time to get back up. So it's really two sections here. The first one is goalies stay on their feet longer. And to set the foundation, for those of you who maybe are still learning goalie or are checking it out for the first time, one part of manually controlling a goalie is that you can always manually drop into butterfly by pressing the right trigger. But your goalie will also automatically drop into butterfly in a lot of situations. And I think for a lot of us, we find that that's typically a good thing. It means we don't have to spend our entire game trying to perfectly time when to drop on every single shot. So this idea of goalies staying on their feet longer, McSavid, what's your approach to letting the auto butterfly occur versus the manual butterfly? And would you like goalies to stand longer? What's your reaction?
I kind of like staying on my feet as much as possible. As the manual goalie, I think you could only drop butterflies if you get a rebound just in front of you. So staying on my feet speaks to me. I like that one.
What about you, Revv? Do you find staying on your feet as long as possible to be beneficial? And do you like this idea of the automated sort of AI part of goalies are going to do that more so this time?
Me personally, I do definitely like the whole concept of staying on your feet longer. Personally, I wish they kind of did away with the auto animation of dropping down, because there are definitely times where, say, like a hard pass comes in that isn't intended to be a shot, but your goalie will react to it that way, and that can definitely get you kind of handcuffed and then lead to a goal game score just because you're locked in that animation. So for me personally, I think it would be nice if that's something you could even toggle as well, of like, do you kind of like with the puck covers, if it's something that you have auto butterfly on just the way it's been in past games, or if you can turn that off and completely manual, completely up to the user to decide when they want to drop down and when they want to stand.
Yeah, it sounds like we're all in alignment here. I would agree. And what I recommend to folks who, watch my TikToks or anything like that, where I talk about this, I typically say, when you're standing, your goalie just has more saves available to them. Meaning there's all the save animations you can make standing up that you could not make in butterfly, but then you also can drop to butterfly, whether manually or automatically. And so therefore, stay on your feet as long as possible. As we get to the final three big bullet points here, we'll try to go quickly because I think these ones might be a little bit... One of these is very sort of generic, very high level, and doesn't really tell us what they're going to do. And then a couple of these are pretty quick. But once again, shout out to anyone who is watching this. If you haven't yet, give us a follow so that you don't miss any future content, any future tips, or any reactions to what EA tells us later on down the line. To close us out here, one of these last bullet points says, EA is planning to make tweaks to save and capability models. They go on to say this means improved readiness for controlled and redirected saves, as well as rebalanced goalie precision. So there's these two sub-bullet points. One of them is an improvement. They're improving our readiness for two different types of saves, controlled and redirected. The second part here says that they're just rebalancing goalie precision. Goalie precision is the calculation, really, that goes into, taking into account your stats, your positioning, your abilities, the gold and silver ones. When you put all that together, when you're facing a shot, goalie precision is sort of the calculation, the score that your goalie receives as to how well they're going to save any given shot based on all of those factors, as well as things like your positioning. So when they say rebalancing, it doesn't really tell us if they're going to make it stronger, make it weaker, or whatnot. So starting with this maybe like improved readiness, Revv, this is one where I've been trying to translate it. Does this mean anything to you, or is this something that we just are going to have to wait and see?
So when I hear readiness, for the big word that jumps out to me is like the redirected save. So it's making me think on like tips, for example, on maybe our reaction time to tips and deflections, possibly, of how quickly we will react to that. If that's pretty much all I can really glean from it. So yeah, I guess to your point, that might be something that we might need them to kind of break down a little bit.
And then McSavid, I know you and I have talked about, the individual stat points that we put into things. You and I did a video that was a ton of fun on breakaway, and you had mentioned that you do put stats into breakaway because you think it does things like when you are facing that scenario, when you're facing a breakaway, it speeds you up, it increases your goalie's reaction a little bit. And so that all does sort of speak to what the idea of goalie precision is, which is if you have more stats in a breakaway point or ability or whatever it is, and you're facing a breakaway, your goalie precision in that situation therefore is boosted. So when you see this idea of rebalanced goalie precision, do you have an idea of what they mean? Because I don't know that I do. And if you do, or if you don't, what do you hope they accomplish by flagging this here in their blog?
No, I'm not sure. I mean, you two, that's English as their first language. Not even sure what it means. It's just big words to me. No, rebalance. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. Let's just find out and see, I guess. But I like the bullet point above it there, improved readiness for controlled and redirected saves. I'm not sure if it has anything to do with vision or reflex control, but I like that point.
Totally. Revv, on the rebalance side, does that speak to anything that you pay attention to? Are you somebody that thinks about sort of the build and the attributes and the points versus what you're going up against? Or how do you react to that second bullet point?
As far as attributes, for me, I guess there's like a couple like things like, like vision and rebound control. Those are things that I kind of look at, but generally speaking, I don't necessarily put too much stock into it after a while. Like once I kind of like set it and forget it, and it's kind of more so just reading the game itself and kind of seeing how that plays out.
Absolutely. Something that we say a lot is, look, the build is something that we all focus on a ton. I know I do because I find it really interesting. But at the end of the day, something like 70 to 80% of what makes you a good goalie is going to be how you handle the game situation, just like you just said, Revv. The build is cool, and maybe in some ways it's helpful, and maybe some ways you can cater it to your play style. But at the end of the day, you could give someone like Revv or McSavid a flat, neutral, unadjusted build, and they'll still be able to make some fantastic saves and win games. But let us move along here to this next one, which says the second to last bullet point: improved decision making for positioning. And then the three bullet points, sort of the three scenarios that they give as examples, are one-timers, facing in tight shots, and challenge distances. So improved decision-making for one-timers, improved decision-making for challenge distances. So McSavid, of these three bullet points, does something stand out? Does this feel like they're addressing a key issue?
No, I'm mostly curious to see what'll happen and how it plays out. I for one, I like one-timers. I better read them as good as possible. So I'm curious to see what will happen.
Yeah, and I know, again, going back to that little breakaway series we did, you are someone who almost sort of dramatically so challenges the breakaway by going far out of your net and then sort of tracking back into your net, trying to keep and read the speed of the guy on a breakaway. So maybe that challenge distance and the improved decision making because you chose to actually challenge versus the opposite. I'm sure you would probably like anything that improves your decision making or just improves your goalie's ability to make a save if you're willing to go and challenge via distance control on a breakaway. Revv, let me throw it to you then. Things like improved decision making based on your positioning on in tight shots on those challenge distances. What are you hoping that EA is going to solve for?
I guess as far as the challenge distances, one, I'm wondering if it's gonna kind of put more importance on your depth, where I know that there have been times in the NHL series where playing very deep or even middle sitting has been very effective, and there hasn't really been too much of a reward for playing aggressively like real life goalies doing. So I'm wondering if it's going to kind of place more importance on that, so rewarding you for challenging on plays where it's beneficial to do so, and then at the same time giving you maybe the benefit for when you're playing more conservative for, say, those one-timer plays and allowing you to get over and make.
Yeah, that's the bullet point that has seemed the most interesting to me. Challenging distances, giving us a reason to not sit in the back of our net, and maybe giving us a penalty if we do sit in the back of our net, regardless of the shot type. And if this succeeds in the way that it could, give us as the humans controlling the goalie more opportunities to show skill expression. If somebody is better at reading the situation and applying a different amount of distance out of the crease or in the crease, that's going to make them better than somebody who doesn't yet have that skill. And I love anything that gives us more skill expression, because we know the skaters get a lot of opportunities to do that, and I'm sure we all agree that we would like the same. Final bullet point here then, and sort of a fun one. The overarching bullet point is that there's new actions added. I'm going to read through the 5 actions, and then we can quickly talk about some of our favorites. The first one is AI goalies will use the spread V. Okay, we probably don't care about that because we're not AI goalies. The second one is user goalies can saucer pass. The third one, goalies can cover the puck off of a teammate's stick to better protect their own goals. And then the final 2, post-goal emotional reactions and pad stack and desperation side poses. So here's what I'm going to do. Revv, I'm going to let you pick one of these actions, whichever one you think is the most interesting or whichever one's your favorite. Tell us why. Tell us what you hope happens here.
So I'll say my favorite action from the list is definitely 3, goalies cover the puck off the teammate's stick. Because that was kind of like what I remember I had read it somewhere before, and I guess this is what I was referring to. Because yeah, there are definitely a lot in this where you go to kind of cover the puck and maybe you knock it in, or in the case of a teammate kind of skating back towards you, that they can inadvertently put the puck in on you. I like having kind of more control of protecting my net and not necessarily letting it be up to EA gods and other.
Couldn't agree more. McSavid, you have your choice of the other 4. Which one stands out to you?
Well, I'm really anticipating the user goalie saucer pass feature. I'd love to see how that works, and because a lot of times you've been trying to play the puck and it goes to the opposition instead. But if we can saucer pass it, I'm really looking forward to it.
Totally. A little bit of I've some of my favorite moments this year have been those big passes when I get the puck and being able to chuck it all the way down center ice to someone who's ready for you, a little Tom Brady threading the needle type situation. Give us more of that. I want more goalie assists in NHL 25.
Yeah, me too.
Well, then I'll take the last one, which I actually am interested about. This one that says the pad stack and the desperation side poses are now merged. We all know what the pad stack is. The desperation side pose is where instead of pad stack, you can activate the desperation sideways movement, and your goalie will like immediately dive onto their side. There was part of me that saw how quickly that animation occurs and really wondered if that could be something that we could learn to use. That save covers a lot of the net, and therefore covers a lot of like really tricky situations for goalies. But since it activated so quickly, it seemed like something we might have been able to start relying on. And so if they're putting those two together, I'm curious if it's something that we might actually have a desperation animation that we could add to our arsenal. So I'm looking forward to that one. Fellas, before we wrap up here, any final thoughts? I think what we've accomplished today is we've gone through this list, and we've also sort of mixed in what we hope to see based on what we've heard so far, some wish list type items. But before we go, Revv, I'll toss it to you first. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I guess to start, I'm really happy that we're able to do this, get us all here talking about this. It's really exciting. It's good to get talking, kind of get the rumor mill going, what we're hoping to see. And no, I'm really excited for the game. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they showcase next, and I'm just ready to get playing.
Couldn't agree more. My excitement levels are high, and I hope everyone else's are as well. McSavid, closing thoughts, closing words. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. I'm also very excited for the game. I'm glad we us three did this, and I'm ready to make some videos to help other goalies save the puck.
Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us on this initial journey into the world of long-form podcast video style content. We hope you guys found this interesting. Definitely let us know what you think, whether it be via the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, or whatnot, or by joining the Between the Pipes Discord, where you're going to find myself, Revv, and McSavid, as well as a whole host of other fantastic goalies with their own thoughts, arguments, and ideas. Jump on in if you haven't. Learn from the pros just like I have, and tell us what you think, and also what else you want to hear from folks like McSavid and Revv. So for the two professionals that I've been chatting with, McSavid, Revv, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. My name is Willemander, and we are representing Between the Pipes. Follow us, check us out, and we can't wait to see y'all soon on the ice between those pipes, making big saves. Good one, everybody, and let's get ready for EA NHL 25.